Okay, so I was looking at the lower control arms on my Foreman, and I realized I could probably swap them left and right to get some free rake. So I tried it, and it actually works. And by works, I mean like you can actually bolt them up easily. The alignment is absolutely atrocious. This completely wrecks your caster. I say again, do not try this. If you do, proceed at your own risk. But it is interesting and kind of funny. Obviously, if you're going to do a rake, you should move both control arms forward, not just the lower ones. This is torturing the ball joints. So this is my 2017 Foreman 500 electric shift. And I just had a crazy idea. So I want to bring the front tires forward a little bit because I'm trying to stuff the 33s on it. And usually I do a bunch of trimming and I hammer this bar to fit the 33s on here. 32s fit good because they're a little short. The 33s are a lot taller and cause some rubbing. And I'm looking at it, and I think I can just swap the bottom control arms. So put this bottom control arm on that side and vice versa. Leave the uppers alone, and it'll bring the tire forward a good amount. Now, obviously, it's going to wreck the camber, and it's going to make it hard to steer. But I'm just curious if this will work. Definitely not ideal, but we're going to give it a shot because swapping the lower control arms is super easy. There's no shock mount, so it's just 2 nuts and bolts, and then you got to break 1 ball joint. So yeah, I'm going to jack it up, pull the tires off, and show you how to do it. Okay, and like with any experiment idea, we got to establish our initial conditions. So we're going to measure from, we need to make a mark, measure from the floorboard support bar at that mark, and that mark. Always make a mark so you know to measure from the same spot again. Measure from this nut to there because that's going to tell us how far the wheel went forward, right, the center of the hub. So from the mark to the center of the hub is 18 1/4 on this side. And eighteen 3/8 on this side. So that's probably because of the alignment. But that'll give us some rough numbers to compare to. 18 3/8, 18 1/4. All right, so here's how you separate the lower ball joint on a Honda. Take your impact and your 17mm, and don't take the nut all the way off, just loosen it. See how it's loosened a few turns? Then you take your hammer and you smack right here. Just hit the bottom arm sideways. Don't hit the nut. Bam, it's separated. That is the right way to do it without damaging the boot or the joint or anything. And now I'm just gonna unbolt these two and swap the arms. Okay, so I just swapped the lower control arms. I took the little shields off of them because these things are annoying, I hate them. And now the knuckle is clocked forward big time. But, you know, it looks really stupid, but it still steers. And we definitely got more distance from here to here. But now before I can measure it, I need to align it a little bit because by moving the arm forward, obviously the alignment got dorked up and the wheels are towed out pretty far. So I'm gonna adjust the tie rod to center this a little bit, and then I'll take some more measurements and we'll see how much rake we got. But this is obviously a terrible idea. Geometry is really bad, but it is a free way to fit a bigger tire if you don't mind it steering and driving like complete shit. So yeah, definitely don't do this. I say again, this is terrible for this ball joint, probably not very good for this ball joint, probably not good for your CV axle because the whole thing is twisted at a weird angle. Probably doesn't actually matter that much for the CV. All right, so I got the tie rod set fairly straight. And then from the mark to the center of the axle, nut 19 5/8. 19, oh man, we're at 20 inches over here? We're right at 20 inches. All right, 20 inches. So let's go put that in Excel, I can't remember the numbers, and we'll see how much rake we got. See how much farther forward the center of the wheel is now. All right guys, so check this out. So that's our stock measurements, that's our raked measurements. So on the left side, we moved the wheel forward about 1.4 inches. On the right side, move the wheel forward about 1.6 inches. I say about because this number is going to change based on how you have the handlebars steered and aligned and stuff. So we're just going to take the average of those two because it tells us, you know, what it's going to be once you get everything aligned perfectly. So we have about Exactly. Actually, the average is exactly 1.5 inches a rake. So this is a free 1.5 inch rake. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but because of tire diameter versus tire radius, 1.5 inches a rake will help you clear a 3-inch bigger tire, roughly. So that's actually a pretty big deal. So I'm going to try it out and see if it's rideable. It might not be because, again, the alignment, the camber looks okay. The caster is totally out of whack. Basically, the steering axis is tilted really far back, so it's going to have a lot of steering effort and do some weird stuff. But, you know, whatever. It's just a hilarious experiment, and, you know, if you want to try it to stuff some big tires on for a weekend, we're just going to be in mud holes, not doing any high-speed riding, this might work for you. So there we have it. Huge tire rake for free. Yes, the caster is terrible. Watch what happens when you steer. The whole machine rocks around a bunch, and it's really hard to steer. But this thing's got power steering, so it'll be fine, right? They're testing out the wonky steering mod. See how much the bike moves around because the camber or the caster is so jacked up. Yeah, oh man, it steers bad. You can actually steer it if you really jerk on it. It's drivable, but there's a lot of steering effort, and it wants to kind of steer itself, and it does all kinds of weird stuff. But yeah, 1.5 inches of rake. Can't argue with that. Pretty funny. The wheels do lean a little bit too. Like as you steer, look how messed up the camber gets. Yeah, super goofy. But I mean, kind of works. All right, so I swapped the arms back, so it's back to stock now. Here's how it's supposed to steer. See how the bike isn't moving all over the place? Yeah. So definitely a bad idea. If you're going to try it, I do not recommend going over 5 miles an hour. Check out those sweet headlights, though.